hiring committee's going, and it's been great to get to talk to all of the people who are going to come and broaden who all is here at our college. And it's a lot, but it's really great. It's fun to be at this part of the process where you get to see all the new faces. And then for the old faces, yesterday I had a reception for all the folks who are newly tenured. It was coffee, cookies, and conversation. That was from 3:30 to 5:30, and I'd say at least half to maybe 2/3 of the folks came by. And I mean, I know it's not, the schedule doesn't always work for folks, but we had a good number of people who were quite appreciative of the opportunity to, and I was appreciative, especially since I don't know everybody, and obviously I wasn't here when they were hired, so that was really great to get to say hello to everyone. In terms of, since, I mean, it feels like forever since we last met, even though it's only been 5 weeks. As you know from the email, Cynthia Levo and I went back east, and we did not win the Aspen Prize, but lots of people said lots of great things about the college, and it was great to be in the room with all of these with our other 9 colleagues, and there's a lot of great work going on out there, and a lot of great work going on here, and it is so awesome to get to walk in and be the president here, I can tell you that. We are still working really hard on getting that Serafian building. In the last month, we retained the services of a lobbyist to be in Sacramento for us, and it's Dale Shimazaki, who has done a lot of work with the community colleges, college districts. He's also the lobbyist for Santa Monica College and other colleges that are similar to us. He does a little bit of work for the LA district, but not that much work. And one of the reasons that I went with Dale is that he gets what our priorities are, and even though there are folks out there who represent both single college districts and multi-college districts, you know, if you're a big player with the LA district, some of the stuff they're in favor of, it is not good for us. And I say that knowing what their legislative priorities are, since I just came from there. But anyway, so earlier this week, very encouraging news, thanks to a lot of advocacy that we have done and that has been going on. The Assembly, the Budget Committee of the Assembly Education Committee put our building back on the list, and it got voted out of committee, approved. So next week, if the scheduling works out well, Dr. Jack Scott and I are going to go to Sacramento and start working on the Senate side of it. Because at this point in time, the Chancellor's office has pledged that they agree with our building being on the list. The problem at this point appears to be the Department of Finance, and folks in the Department of Finance believing that every college should do at least a 50% match. And our argument as Pasadena is that that building was approved several years ago for a replacement cost where we would only pay about $2 million, which were costs that the state couldn't incur. And when I arrived, 10 weeks ago or 12 weeks ago, the Department of Finance was demanding that in order to stay on the list, we had to promise that we would be willing to put $8 to $10 million on the table to support it, which was a problem because we were never required to do that. So, our advocacy was like, well, we can't just pull that money out of a hat, and that wasn't what the deal was. The deal was the state was going to pay for it. It's a red tag building, all of these things. Well, a month later, now they want 50% now they want 50%. And so our argument is that was not the deal. That was not what the state said that they were going to do. And we're trying to get it back on the list on the Senate side, because right now we don't know where the governor stands on it. We know the governor is more in favor of funding the is more in favor of funding the projects that were supposed to be paid for with Prop 51, more than Jerry Brown. Jerry Brown didn't agree with Prop 51. He agreed not to campaign against it, but he didn't actually support it. So in his time, he didn't really want to approve any projects. So Newsom has a different perspective, but we're trying to make sure that we're on his radar. So, you know, now we're in the sprint, because we're getting to the May revise. So what's really important for us is to get that building on the Senate side. And the good news for us is that our state senator is Anthony Portantino, and he chairs the Appropriations Committee on the Senate side. So, you know, it's definitely far from a done deal, but we're at least better off than we were 2 weeks ago, because our building has been included in a list. So that's been pretty busy. And I spoke at 2 conferences a couple of weeks ago at the Association of Governing Boards on leadership and inclusion, and creating an environment at a college that is inclusive and welcomes, you know, how do you create that from the top. And then at the American Association on Community Colleges, and there it was a panel on LGBTQ leadership issues, and there were 3 other folks, 2 other out presidents, one David Wayne Kuhn from College of Marin up in the Bay Area, and then Merle Irving, who's the president of Hennepin Technical College in Minnesota. And I was speaking as the co-chair of the LGBTQ Presidents in Higher Education, as well as, you know, an out leader. And it was great to get to bring up our safe zone, and the fact that our safe zone training and the issues that have been identified and how we have approached it is great for our DACA students, for our dreamers. And it was interesting because since both of these were in Orlando and they were both national organizations, there were a lot of people around the room with oh, I never thought about that. I never thought about, you know, coming out as DACA, coming out, you know, the commonalities there, and the fact that they might be able to serve 2 populations. So you got a lot of kudos from people across the country. So, yeah, awesome. So I think that's enough for me.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's enough.
You tired now?
I'm tired.
It was late last night.
It was a late last night, yes. Okay. Academic affairs. Don't see Terry?
I think he might be in
Interviews.
CBO.
Oh, okay.
Interviews, the story of his life
Or other
lately.
interviews.
Or other interviews. Oh, can I just say about that? So we had identified a CBO, a Chief Business Officer, and he'd signed on the dotted line. He'd come and filled out all of his paperwork. And then he and his wife decided they'd rather go to College of the Redwoods, or College of Sequoias, rather than here. You know, I don't know why, because we're more cool. So we opened the position up again for another week, and I cajoled a CBO I've worked with at another institution, and we have some more candidates in the pool, so they're looking at those candidates because we really need to get a CBO, so stay tuned. All right.
Maybe an enrollment update, that's what Terry usually does. Like you found more FDS.
Crystal could give the
Yeah.
enrollment update, because she's
We
closer
found
to the
a few
info.
hundred more FDS.
We did? Yes, we
Yes,
did.
we
Yes,
did. Say it with
did.
confidence.
So,
So
when-
Dr. Junie usually tells us about enrollment.
So we just completed the submittal of our P2, our 320 P2, and in that document, we were able to, because folks submitted their positive attendance hours and some late start classes, we are now just barely having to borrow from the trailing summer to meet our base. I think it's like 450 FTS is what we'll have, which is way like half of what we thought previously. So we're pretty excited about that. And that, still that number could go down too, because there's still some positive attendant hours that have not been submitted, and we still have some late starts to get going, so we're kind of excited. Terry's kind of excited.
Yeah, we're gonna make base.
We will definitely make base.
Yay!
Earn all our apportionment from the state.
Yay! That's the goal.
Yeah.
Even though we still are not certain what base is.
I
we're
know.
very
Well, that's the
clear.
bigger issue, is that we're not sure what our base actually is.
By this time, that's
Yeah.
usually not a question for us, but this year it is very much up in the air. Just so you know, they had told us initially it was the average of the 3 previous years. And then Hedva and I made a phone call and they're like, oh no, it's the 2 previous years and then what you reported on your P1, which is an entirely different way for us to look at that. We had no idea, so we
Oh, sorry. I meant the state, not you.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So we had to recalculate, and we still do not have a firm number from the Chancellor's office on what our base number is. But what we do know is that we're going for base and not base plus growth, right?
Right.
Isn't that what you
We are
said
not
last
going
time?
for base plus growth, we are going for base.
So with the new calculation, I'm gathering that it's a higher number?
No, actually, it's a lower
Oh,
number,
okay.
and that is what kind of threw us. It was about 200 less than what we thought, so honestly, we're not even 100% confident that number will stand, so.
Yeah.
So if it's a lower number, are we closer to maybe looking at growth?
So well, maybe, I mean, it depends on what the ultimate number is, like, we don't know what our starting point is, so we don't know what that ending point is. I'm a big fan of, under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of borrowing between years. I know why you have to do it, but if we can get to base in a real way, it sets us up better for going forward, especially with all of the things we're doing to increase retention, increase, folks coming here, then it means that we'll grow naturally. But when you grow unnaturally, what happens is, that 1 year to the next, that growth becomes your base. And then it's like, oh, well, we went for growth last year, let's go for it again. And it just starts ratcheting it up. And in our environment, in so many ways, our enrollments are volatile. They're really volatile. And a slight shift in the economy, a slight shift in a whole bunch of things can cause our numbers to go down. The CSUs, how they admit students, can cause our numbers to go down. All of these things go into play, and I just think let's figure out what our base is, get there in a natural way. And then the nice thing is, if we actually wind up growing, we capture the growth. It's not like we don't capture the growth if we didn't say we were. It's not like playing, pool where you have to call the pocket, and if you don't, then you didn't win. You get the growth, you get paid for it.
So in just to add to this might be too much information. The way the scenario has changed for us is that base used to be the combination of our credit and our non-credit FTS, and that was base. Well, now they've divided that out, and our base now is our credit minus our dual enrollment FTS and minus our non-credit FTS. So it's a new way to calculate base. We get paid for the dual enrollment at a higher rate, which is why they pull it out. We get paid for the non-credit, they just don't incorporate that into our base number anymore. And so that's also been part of the issue for us, is having to go find the dual enrollment, back that FTS out, and then to recalculate the base for us. Look at you, I think you understand all of this.
I do.
Yay!
That makes me feel good.
Okay, great. Student affairs update.
I came from a system prior to this experience at PCC where we had to meet our enrollment targets. Either if we went 2% over, we'd get fined. If we went 2% under, we'd get fined. So I kind of like this, that we have more flexibility. And in any case, my report, since I know we're gonna get a guided pathways presentation, I'll try and plug it into our framework. So for guided entry, I wanted to let everybody know that yesterday I met with the counseling faculty and we discussed that the Pathways Center currently serves around 2,500 new students. But annually, we have around 6,400 new students, and so in order to make sure that we're providing a really great guided entrance experience for our students, we're gonna have the Pathway Center now serve the new students in that space. And we'll have a great collaboration with counseling. Counseling will do, the new student group counseling, orientation, all the things that we provide for our new students to help them succeed. And career communities, I wanted to emphasize that the Freeman Center for Career and Completion will, be open on May 16th. And that will remove the Career Center from the middle of the Student Services L building to the IT building. And so what we'll be able to do with that space in the L building is have an integrated one-stop shop for students. So we'll start piloting those services after the Career Center moves out of the building. What does that mean? That means students will no longer have to stand in line, get to a front counter with a window, with a staff behind a barrier. It'll just be like you walk in the building, you go to the middle, you can get drop-in counseling, find out your answer for your student petition, see a student ambassador, get a campus tour, see our social work services coordinator. So we'll be announcing more of that through email and then having some open house time so you all can come and check it out. And I wanted to also mention that this morning I met with Alex Buckelhide and Dave Steinman and Carrie Starbird, some math faculty, and we're gearing up to notify students about the changes to math and English so that we can help our students figure out which math and English to take now that we have a new assembly bill that we're following, AB 705. We need another meeting because it's a lot of information to sort through and to help our students pick which math is appropriate for them, which are they pursuing STEM, are they pursuing SLAM, what support services should they pursue in order to help them succeed. For commencement, we do have our commencement speaker selected, and his name is Simon Silva. He is an artist. He is an amazing keynote speaker, and so you could check out his art. It features sunflowers, which I love. He's one of my favorite artists from the Inland Empire. And so thanks, Erica, for helping the committee to select.
Maybe we could have Post Malone in the background singing Sunflower, one of my favorite songs.
Okay. And speaking of guided exit, we have around 6,400 degrees we will confer to students. That's 300 more than last year. And we have probably around 200 more individual graduates. And that's just as of now. There's still time for students to get their name in the commencement program as well as graduate. So we're working that out manually. It does take a lot of work, and so I want to express my appreciation to counseling, the commencement office in the student life area, and the admissions and records evaluators. They work really hard on that. In financial aid, we're working on implementing TurboTax for financial aid, which is called Campus Logic. And they've been doing this for this past several months, and will go live in May. It's going to make it way easier for students to apply for financial aid, so we're really excited about it. And this year for guided exit, we have Latinx grad, Black grad. We're adding a lavender lunch. And what that is on other college and university campuses, LGBTQ students have a lavender graduation. And so we're starting with a luncheon, and that's, to help honor our LGBTQ students. And I wanted to also just give you a preview. Micaela has been working with the research office to look at our equity data to do our equity plan. And we're looking at which students have the biggest impact on equity, in the data, where are the gaps? And our LGBTQ students have experienced, the data tells us they have big gaps. So, we have to respond to the data and figure out how to help our students succeed. And also sharing that, the Safe Zone Center, we're set to open in summer. And I think that's about all. I'd be happy to entertain any questions. I did send out an email about our former foster youth career closet. I encourage you and anybody that will watch the video to please bring your business suits or separates to my office. By A&R, we have a rack if you want to hang it there, or take it to the foundation office right across the street from Cherry on Top. We are collecting until May 1st, and we've already received lots of nice things, but we need more, so please help us out. And then our former incarcerated student program will begin July 1st. We'll be sending out a reassigned time opportunity in the next 2 weeks for help with that. That's all.
Great. Well, we don't have a business and administrative services update, so let's go to Stephanie and Miriam. Guided Pathways.
Hi, good morning, everyone. You can take one and pass it around. I know, can you tell who? This is Stephanie's favorite color.
Oh, okay, good to know. So noted.
Everyone knows, matches my office.
You should make it
In November.
Thank you. Did everybody get one? We're good? You need one?
So we start construction in November,
Thank you.
and then it'll be finished in spring.
So Miriam and I were asked to, Miriam and I were asked to provide an update on the work it's okay, that is occurring in Guided Pathways. And so many of you have sat through one of our PowerPoint presentations, and so instead of doing that, we decided to give you a handout. And there's a couple of different reasons for this. We also wanted to give you something that you could use as a reference point when you're reporting back to your constituency groups. And so that's kind of hard to do with a PowerPoint. And so we're trying to provide you information in multiple ways so that you can share it out. And so first here, this is showing kind of the leadership structure of the work that we call the Guided Pathways kind of framework and who's really engaged in it. We have a leadership group, the members are here, and then we also have a working group, and that working group is part of College Council. It's technically a subcommittee of the Student Success Committee, and so Miriam serves on both of those and reports back and forth between to keep them updated. And so just to let everyone know kind of how that is. And then we have kind of our guiding principles here about how it is that we've been adopting guided pathways here at Pasadena City College. Maybe do you want to?
Sure. So we've kind of not wanted it to feel like an initiative or a program of any kind. It's really a transformative experience for the campus, and so guided pathways really coming out and being presented as this is the new version of PCC, how we're improving on our services to students, really focusing on the pillars that we have here that we've localized, and looking at scalability, really addressing what programs are working, what's helping students, really making data-driven decisions when it comes to scaling programs and services, so that we're not spreading ourselves too thin and not creating more band-aids for things that are broken in our system. So we're really looking at business processes, we're looking at folks on campus who figured it out, leveraging our best practices on campus already, as well as bringing in external best practices as we start learning about what's going on around the country. Really working closely with the C program work group, the Student Success Committee, our research area, just to make sure that we're addressing the equity gaps on our campus, since we should be focused on that, because these are evidence of things that are not working in our current processes, and then that really we're trying in all aspects of the college to embed this framework, so that people have this concept of we're helping students from the point of interest through to career. And so really keeping that on everybody's radar as we move forward during our hiring processes. We're being intentional about embedding questions in the hiring process, addressing guided pathways, and contextualizing the framework.
Yeah, so, ultimately what Miriam and I have been trying to do with everybody across the campus is just for everyone to realize that we've already been engaged in this work for a very long time. It just happens to be that the national movement and the state movement has decided to label it as something called guided pathways. And we all know that pathways is the drinking word of the year, and so we have to work around that. Yes. And so we, what we're trying to do is to help make those connections across campus. Really what Guided Pathways is about is it's a framework for us to improve the entire institution. And what we're doing is helping to make those connections across campus. Oh, did you know so-and-so is also working on this? And then you get those people in a room together so that we're breaking down those silos and so that folks are making those connections and coming up with new, and even better ideas to help address some of the outcomes that we need to improve on. But then we also, as Miriam was mentioning, highlight those outcomes that we're doing really well on so that other folks across campus can do that. And so there have been different ways that we've engaged in that across campus. Part of this is the groups that we were talking about. The other part of this with the engagement is making sure that there's a focus and a conversation about this on like our professional learning days. I think I accidentally put flex in here, which I know I'm not supposed to do ever. You think I would have, it is, and you think I would have learned that over 20 years, but whatever. And so flex, and so, our professional learning days, and also we've done what we call the road show where we go into different departments and have that conversation with, everybody in there. What are you doing right now to serve students? Okay, great, what else would you like to do? Did you know that there's this framework and it can help inform? Here's some ideas. And really getting people engaged in it. What we want everyone to really, what to resonate with everyone is that everyone is doing guided pathways. The concept of guided pathways is everybody's responsibility, and it's not just one committee, and it's not just one group of people. We all have to be dedicated to this particular work, and so that's really what it's about. And then what we did is we put in here some of the work that we've been going across campus and talking about. So if you attend a statewide conference, if you attend a national conference where they talk about guided pathways, it comes from a very academic place. On one side of it, this framework is really there to help us close those equity gaps, but then on another end of it, it's some researchers who don't work at community colleges, and that language isn't always something that resonates with folks who do work at community colleges. And so what we worked really hard on is putting everything in a context for what's better here at PCC. So the statewide initiative has what they call their 4 pillars, which are like this wave. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like, identify your path, get on the path, stay on the path, love your path, learn on the path. And it was very generic, and we noticed that people didn't really resonate with that. It definitely didn't resonate with me, and so we had lots of conversations. And so what we've done here is we've adapted it in a culturally responsive way for us and for what serves our students. And so when we go around and we explain what Guided Pathways is, we explain to everybody it's about access, career, support, structure. And those are really, the main fundamental concepts. And then Cynthia was doing such a great job of when she was categorizing the work that she did. These are what we call our pillars. And so, do you want to?
Yeah, it just helped us to organize how we're going to approach the work in systemically on our campus, like thinking about entry and its own context and what that entails. And so the working group is broken up into subgroups of folks who are thinking about guided entry and folks who are thinking about guided exit, and each one of our localized pillars. So it's helping us organize the way that we do the work on our campus. And so
I want to also pause and say that PCC, we've done a great job of really taking what other colleges use jargon, career clusters, meta majors, onboarding, and we've done such a great job of making the language match our students and making it more familial. And I think that is, helping our students. Most of our students come from a collectivist cultural background. And so career communities, guided entry, guided exits, like we care, because we really do. Yeah. So great job.
And on the next page, we have a list of some of the work that's been done and tried to categorize it in, like, within the pillars themselves. This is not comprehensive. It's a lot of the work that we're doing, and this template only allowed me to go so far to list things. And also, my brain only has so much information I can dump into lists. So, and there,
That's not true.
there are a lot of things that we do that cross multiple pillars, and so, like Stephanie was mentioning, a lot of the work that we've been doing is making connections among people that have been doing work that support each other, and finding, sometimes we're duplicating efforts, and so how can we consolidate those efforts to impact more students without duplication? And so a lot of things on these lists are either in their infancy or have started to scale, but just to give you an idea of kind of some of the work that's been happening on campus.
And even though we're categorizing it this way, please, they're not silos by themselves. Things have to go across them. So for example, when we talk about career and we talk about students identifying a career, so often in the traditional community college structure, that conversation would have happened during the exit portion. But it needs to happen in the onboarding portion. You have to start with career. It shouldn't be, so often we had that conversation of what's your major, and then you get students in your office, or at least I did, that was like, so I majored in this, now I need to know what kind of job I can get. And we need to flip that conversation. So we're like, well, what do you want to do? What do you love? Okay, well, these are the programs that we have. Let's choose a major that aligns with that. So that career concept has to go through all of those different kinds of pillars.
And just to add to that, we ask students to select courses before they have any idea what their program really needs, without really giving them a lot of information by the time they have to select courses. And so that's part of the work, is really to help clarify the structure and the decision-making points for students in a much more intentional and broad way.
And that concept of career first really drove, there's some different projects in here that we've been working on, and one of them is the website redesign. And you'll notice that there's a lot of career focus on our website. And we have great analytics coming out from the folks who help design that and showing how many hits those get and how engaged students are in that conversation. We worked with the career counselors to help develop the content for that. And then we also got a software program called Career Coach, where students can go in and do an assessment, because with our traditional career center, which I know we're now envisioning something different, students had to physically come on campus to do any sort of assessment, and it wasn't, those tools aren't always accessible for English language learners. And so we did a lot of research into finding things that were accessible. So students now from anywhere, as long as you can go on our website, you can either do a quick 6 question to at least get you going, or you can do it more in depth. And we have a lot of faculty who are using it now in the classroom as part of curriculum and activities. And so it's great to access,
And do we have a way to capture who's doing that, so then we can match it later on to wage data or anything? Because I think that's what, when the chancellor's office looks at the student-centered funding formula, they're looking at how many students went out and got jobs that were related to what they did.
Right.
So is there a way to connect those two things?
Tanisha has that,
Yeah.
like
She
the
does.
matching.
I think she does, Kev, because it's an
Okay.
EMSI product, right?
It is.
Oh,
It's
okay.
part of the software program that we chose. There's
So we
a
do, okay, wonderful.
an alumni tracker part of it. And then we also had some data before we even started using that, because Aspen required it in that jobs outcome, the matching table,
Yeah.
so yes.
Yeah, we need more of that, because that was one of the issues, was that we didn't have great statistics, and probably because it was in its infancy, it's not that we don't have good statistics, it's that we don't have the statistics, and we probably have better outcomes than we know.
What I'll do is I'll follow up with Tanisha about that report that gets run out of MC, unless you want to do it. We can chat later about, so we can get you something.
Yeah, it'd just be good to know.
Yeah,
Just wanna make sure
absolutely.
we can measure it.
And so the website, and then the other 2 major projects that we've been focusing on are the career communities, which is PC's version of MetaMajors. MetaMajors is an organizational tool where you take programs and put them into categories so that students can better choose, because it's so hard to identify a major so early on. But then we have, what was the triple SP requirements where students had to identify a major, but they weren't prepared, and la 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 la. But then, as Cynthia was mentioning, with our collectivistic cultures being so prevalent on our campus, we also wanted to have that community aspect, and we wanted to layer on career always. And so we've come up with those career communities, which is kind of a marriage between a learning community and a meta major. So it's a little bit different for us.
And I can tell you, as somebody relatively new to the institution, when I was researching the institution, the website that describes all of this is amazing. I mean, it was very clear who's where, what you do. It was really clear. So that's really encouraging. I think a lot of colleges are not to that point where people from the outside can go and think, oh, I wonder what this means. It's good.
Great, I'm glad you like it. And so we had a group that worked on that. Brock had a lot to do with that, and then our communication and marketing group, as well as Mackie, who is our, the group that does our website, worked really well together to figure out how to package all of that. And so I'll be sure to pass that along to them.
Definitely.
And then do you want to talk about mapping?
Yeah, so we've been working for this last year on academic maps, the program maps, and part of it was the teaching aspect of it, of getting a shared understanding of what program maps are. So we as part of the roadshow, we have been kind of talking to different areas about what program maps are. And then, and again, going back to the shared responsibility, it's not counseling's responsibility to create these maps. It's not faculty's responsibility to create these maps, it's us together doing it. So in January and in March, we hosted Punch Pie and program maps, and so invited faculty to come by. It wasn't mandatory for anybody, and we had a lot of folks come in. And the conversations that took place were really good in the sense that, first of all, we were talking across areas. Faculty teaching and disciplines were learning about general education and how the programs that were created in their areas fit when you're trying to map something out, and so a lot of questions came up about that. Some questions about like hidden prerequisites that we didn't know existed as part of programs came to light. Things, and then units and courses on programs that aren't offered anymore, that have been archived, that are still part of programs. So part of it has been a little bit of curriculum cleanup. Some of the languages division realized that because they didn't include their first level of a language as part of their degree and program, they weren't getting their completers because students never made the 18 units before they transferred. And so they're redoing their programs now to be more inclusive of that 5 units that we weren't giving students credit for at all. So things like that have been coming up. So the work of the maps has been a lot more on the curriculum side and revealing to everybody kind of what these programs kind of look like. We have drafts of everything at this point, like drafts. Now it's like consolidating all those drafts and getting faculty and counselors to vet everything to make sure they're clean before they go up. And also, there's a representation of the tool that we've purchased to post these maps online. And so once this is here, it will help me put the maps online for students to be able to access, so that they're not a bunch of Word docs and PDFs that are really confusing and hard to wrangle.
Yeah, so a lot of colleges, when the whole Guided Pathways initiative really hit the state of California, they created their maps, put them on the website, and it was like, look, Mom, we're doing Guided Pathways. But really what the conversation needs to be about is what is the purpose of those? How do students use those maps as tools? How do instructional faculty use them? How do counselors use them? And so we've spent more time engaging in that dialogue, but now we're at a point where once this mapper gets put into place, which we'll be doing over summer, all of the maps that have been vetted and approved will be up for use by students, faculty, and staff in the fall. So that's where we are in terms of all of the major. There's lots of other work that's going on, but we just wanted to highlight the major things that we're really asking folks to engage in right now, of what our major outcomes are, and to give you kind of a structure of what our guiding principles and work and structure is. We're happy to answer any questions. Thank you. you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have old items, discussion and possible action. We do not have Mr. Blazinski here. Are you taking these?
Actually, Charlotte is here with us today to help
Charlotte,
with this.
sorry.
But I do want to just say that we are going to pull BP 3410 due to a board discussion last night, but we can continue on. You tried.
I can.
We can continue on with the BP because it does not conflict
Yeah.
with the current BP.
Yeah.
So this has been vetted, it's been to the academic senate, the classified senate. If you have any additional questions about it, I'm sure Charlotte is more than happy to answer them.
I'll do my best. Found out about it last minute, but yeah.
Any questions? That's nice.
That was quick.
That was good.
Okay, so in this case, do we?
You need a recommendation to
Okay.
move this forward?
Do I have a recommendation to move that forward?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right,
Nice.
Nice.
Great.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so We'll go on to
Anytime.
prohibition
No.
of harassment, because we don't like to do that either.
right.
So this is the BP. And if you have any questions, Charlotte is here for you, but I will tell you, this has also gone through the classified senate, the academic senate, and been vetted by the executive committee and our lawyers, because, you know, you always want to get lawyers involved. Any questions?
Do I have a motion to send this forward?
So moved.
Okay, that's it. So move in a second.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. And then,
I have to give Lenora a heads up.
okay,
Okay, so this is the AP for the prohibition of harassment, and just for clarification purposes, we actually did like a complete rewrite of these in order to bring them in line with the current regulations. So normally I do like a lot of strike through and bolding on these, but it would have been so much strike through and bolding, you would have had trouble following it, so we just rewrote the whole thing out. And again, this has been vetted through classified, academic, executive. So are there any questions for Charlotte?
do I have a motion to?
Motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Great, any discussion? All those in favor of sending this forward, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Awesome.
Okay, so 5700 is really just information only. We just had to do a name change because apparently this is no longer the name of this.
That is not,
And
no longer.
apparently our current superintendent president is the president of this one, and she'd like
Vice
it.
chair, yes.
Yeah. So she'd like it named appropriately.
I
so-
think I should, yeah.
You do, wouldn't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
named it appropriately.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's done. Okay, and then you are on to, because, you know,
You know,
that's fun. So we are going to, you have seen these before, but these are the local goal alignment for the Vision for Success. And I have been through the classified senate, I've been through the academic senate, I have been to Associated Students, and it is going to the Management Association on May 3rd. We're there to take a peek at it, but I'm just gonna walk you through this one more time for fun.
just for giggles.
Yes, 'cause we really love doing this now. Actually, I don't even think I need the PowerPoint.
I don't think you do, I think we all have tattoos.
Okay, so again, let me just one more time give you the background for why we are doing this. So in July 2017, the Chancellor's Office released a document called the Vision for Success. It had specific goals for the California Community College system. Then in July 2018, the governor and the state legislature came out with the new student-centered funding formula. We discussed that earlier. In August, they came out with what they call the trailer bill, which is how they intended to implement AB 1809. And part of that trailer bill was that we had to first submit a timeline for development of local goals that align with the Vision for Success. We did that. Then we had to actually set the local goals, move them through our shared governance process, and then by May 30th, we had to enter them into this really cool software system called Nova and have them all verified by the appropriate shared governance leaders. So, and also as part of that, we had to look at the goals for the disproportionately impacted populations that we identified in our student equity plan. All right, so the AB 1809 established the funding formula, the goal setting process, aligning our comprehensive plan with our adopted local goals, and that we put money at it. That's the last piece there. Okay, so here's what we did. This was the timeline we submitted in December. For a change of pace, we are right on schedule. Yay.
And you
Okay.
were part of it.
Guidance from the Chancellor's Office. Our local goals should be ambitious and achievable. They should be used as the basis for our plans we will be developing concurrently and subsequently. If the goals are achieved more quickly, then they can be recalibrated. I was at Associated Students yesterday and they got stuck on the word recalibrated. It was really cute. They're like, what does that mean? And how are you gonna do that? And it was very sweet, because they were very concerned.
That's very cute.
They also said this should be, the baseline data, I need to tell you this because it's important, that the baseline data for the goals was supplied to me by the Chancellor's Office. So the baseline year was 16-17 with some caveats for each goal, and I can go into the caveats, but it depends on whether you really want to know or not. And then that we were supposed to coordinate development of goals and plans to make our strategic direction clear and actionable to anybody who from the outside might be looking at what we're doing. All right. Okay, so goal 1, the system-wide goal was to increase by 20% the number of CCC students annually who acquire degrees, credentials, certificates, job-oriented skills. So our first goal was PCC will increase among all students the number who earn an associate degree or associate degree for transfer from 3177 to 3650, a 15% increase. And this is a duplicated head count. So that means in that 3177 are students who earn an associate degree for transfer, and they could have also earned an associate degree, but they're counted twice in that number, okay? Yay, she made it. Okay, for the second one, we said for our Chancellor's Office approved certificates from 482 to 580, a 20% increase. We felt this was very reasonable. We've done over 580 in the past. And also that they are lowering the unit requirements from 18 to 16, so we'll have more certificates available. That will fall into this category. And then the last one, this is the interesting, about 2 weeks ago, they changed the wording on this goal. This is how much in flux this all is. And this is the unduplicated head count. So the unduplicated head count of 2594 in 16-17 to 2700 in 21-22. And again, I just want to point out that the baseline year is 16-17, so clearly 17-18 is gone, right? 18-19, pretty much gone.
Pretty much gone.
Right, so we're really looking at a 3-year time frame to get us up to the goal years. So we tried when we looked at these to think in terms of ambitious and achievable but realistic. When you're not looking at 5 years, you're looking at really 3. Okay, goal 2 was transfer. The first one was our associate degrees for transfer. Baseline of 1025 to 1550, which is a 51% increase. We looked at trend data. We felt we were well in line to do that. The second one is to increase our overall transfers to 4-year institutions. And again, they established UCs or CSUs only. We think that's a handicap because we do really well to the in-state and out-of-state private, correct? So their baseline is 2052. I believe that number is incorrect, but it's the number they gave me. We said we'd get to 2700, a 32% increase. Good? Yay. Unit accumulation, okay, so this is the average number of units that a community college student will achieve here at our college. The only problem for us is they do a system-wide look, which I cannot do internally. And we said we would reduce it from our average of 92.52 to 79, a 15% decrease. A couple of things. First of all, we really feel that with the AB 705 and students taking less of the remedial education, we will automatically reduce that numbers, and that's why we felt 79 was reasonable for us to achieve in the next 3 years. Plus all this guided pathway stuff, yes, okay. Okay. Okay, workforce, okay, so Matt, how many times have you heard this? I know. So PCC will increase among all students who did not transfer to a four institution and exited from 24,000 to 12 to 25,665, which is about a 2% increase per year, a 6% overall. The next one is, again, it's a regional living wage from 35%, attaining that to 41%. In parentheses at the end, you'll see the number 31,767. That is actually what's considered a living regional wage for Los Angeles County. I know, hard to believe, but that's what it is. Then the last one is PCC will increase amongst all students who respond to the CTE outcome survey that they're working in a job closely or very closely related to their field of study from 70% to 75%. Again, this is a survey. Santa Rosa Junior College does this survey. They have the contract with the Chancellor's Office. We send them all of our students who have left the college and earned a degree or certificate. They survey them, and then they provide us with the results. Good news for PCC, we have a really high response rate on this survey, like 40%. That's like crazy high, but that still means we don't know what the other 60% are doing. But kudos to us, we still think we can go from 70 to 75%. All right, goal 5 was the equity goal. We had to identify the disproportionately impacted students on goals 1 and 2 from our 17 to 19 student equity plan. This is where it all gets kind of mumble jumble. We'll talk about that later. So these were the student groups on goals 1 and 2 who we identified in our 17 to 19 student equity plan that were disproportionately impacted. We said we'd set goals for those. So for the first one, Pacific Islanders, we said we go from 0 to 2. You can't do a percentage change when you go from 0 to 2. African Americans, 93 to 120, a 29% increase. Latinx, 1434 to 1575, a 10% increase. Student with disabilities, 137 to 197, 44% increase. And again, just for clarifications, students with disabilities are not mutually exclusive from the groups above, because you could be Latino and disabled or African American, so they're all kind of jumbled in there together. Equities for certificates, Pacific Islanders, 0 to 1, big goal, good for us, we can do it. Transfers, American Indians, Alaska Natives, we said 0 to 1, well, big number. African Americans, 50 to 70. Latinx, 748 to 1010. Students with disabilities, 78 to 117. Those were the goals we set. Questions? Excellent.
Hey, so I think we need a motion, is
Yes.
that correct?
The next step in this process is that this will go to the Board of Trustees. This actually, in Nova, has to be signed off by the President of the Academic Senate, the Superintendent President of the college, and the President of the Board of Trustees, in case I didn't mention that before.
Yeah, I would just like to make a motion to send forward the local goals.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Other than awesome work, everyone?
Yeah, really
Amazing
good.
work, yay.
Great job.
You know, I just want to thank the Strategic Planning Committee because this was hard. This was a lot harder than you might imagine. And they took this very seriously, looked at like 19 pages of data tables, and were very thoughtful in setting these goals.
And the Student Success Committee.
And the Student Success Committee, they were really thoughtful because it was tough. Going from 0 to 1 is hard sometimes. But they were also very supportive in the process, so thank you.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? All right, well, we have us a set of vision for success goals.
Yay!
All right, so with that, we move to discussion and possible action, flexible calendar program guidelines. And we have Lenora here.
So this is being brought really as an information item primarily, although if this body would like to approve them, we all would like to support. And the reason that it's being brought as an information item, of course, is this is professional development related to faculty, flexible, flex specifically. So this does not address classified professional or managers or administrators. It's simply the faculty guidelines to meet our flexible flex goals that the Senate passed several years ago. So this has been a long time coming, getting these guidelines put into place so that faculty can avail themselves of this option. They could attend Flex Day, or they could meet their Flex obligation in these other ways, that contractual obligation. This has already been through several reads at Academic Senate, and the Academic Senate passed it at not the last meeting, but the meeting before, that last March meeting. And it was created by, initially in its first form, by Jason Robinson and Valerie Foster, so many thanks to them and the Flex Advisory Committee for working on this. And we had several sit-downs before this went to Senate to fine-tune it with a lot of different folks. And so, for your information, that's all I've got. It follows the Title V guidelines, so you'll see the Title V language in the chart. The Title V categories are pretty broad, and so it gives examples of activities that would count under each of those Title V categories. In instances where a faculty member thinks that it should count but can't clearly fit it into any of those categories, the faculty member is directed to work with their dean to figure out whether or not this would count. And worst case scenario, if it really cannot be resolved through the dean, then it would be sent to the Flex Advisory Committee for the Flex Advisory Committee to make a ruling on that particular activity.
I was looking at this earlier, and again, I already went through its reads, but I just found it interesting that under A, it says flex credit cannot be awarded under 3, participation in regular division meetings, whereas in B, activities that are pre-approved for flexible credit include, down on the bottom, Department of Division meetings.
So there would be a difference between what you're contractually obligated to do in terms of a division meeting, like I'm contractually obligated to show up to my division meetings that Jeff runs, versus something that I may not be contractually obligated to do, such as a departmental meeting. And this language can get confusing, but let's take an area not like social sciences, but let's take math, for example. That entire discipline is one division, and they might decide to meet to do some program review stuff, to create action plans for SLOs, to look at data that they would do outside of the context of a meeting that Carrie calls, for example. And so that outside meeting would count as a flex sort of thing, whereas the Carrie called meeting wouldn't. In social sciences, it's a little bit different because there's only one person who calls a division meeting. If we wanted to do something on our own, it would be a department meeting because there are 11 different disciplines, right? So playing around with the language was a little bit tricky, so it really just comes down to what is your contractual obligation.
Yeah, because that's the only part that got me. I was like, you're like
Right.
saying yes to this thing.
Yeah, but similarly, adjuncts,
As long as you all
for
understand
example,
it.
our adjunct faculty will have a flex obligation that they need to meet. They are not contractually obligated to go to a meeting that Carrie calls, but let's say they decide to. Well, that should count then for them in terms of meeting their flex obligation because it's not a contractual requirement. So this gets a little bit in the weeds, but that's why you're seeing that language.
So what is the will of the group? Would you like to make a motion to offer support from the College Council for this plan?
Yes, I motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion? Knowing that it does not require our approval, but it is nice to have our support. All those in favor of providing support, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Awesome,
Thank you.
you're good. Yay! All right.
Cheers.
Okay, so the next item is culturally competent hiring model implementation ad hoc work group. You can't even make an acronym.
And I have to honestly say, I don't know who sent this to me and asked to have it agendized. Yes, did you?
So it came out of CAPM, yeah.
Excellent. I knew someone would know.
Yes, so I think we spoke at this
did.
at Kaplan, but just to inform the group, I think it is now 3 or 4 years ago, we launched 6 equity pathways on our campus. When we first received equity funding, we wanted to make sure that we were launching campus-wide efforts, and one of those 6 pathways was the equity and hiring pathway. We made a bold investment by bringing on Dr. Chris Cullinan to do our EEO training. And that has helped, but we want to take this to the next level, and since we have not had consistent leadership in HR over those 4 years, a lot of the efforts that have been started have not been brought to full fruition, so we just want to take this opportunity to get everyone from instruction, from HR, from all of our different shared governments leadership groups informed and on the same page, and do some planning about how to move forward in a way that can help transform our campus to close equity gaps for our students through our hiring processes.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? This is an information item.
Is this to start?
We are hoping to start in summer so that we have things in place for fall. So June would be ideal.
After Flag Day.
And Bastille Day.
Yeah. Okay, next is, oh, I'm sorry, Terry.
Can we just make sure that all the titles of the members are correct? Because I believe the Dean of Instructional Services is supposed to be the Dean of Instructional Support. And I'm guessing that the
Student Equity
Professional Development Coordinator is actually the Director of Professional Development.
I think
So
there's a
can-
newer draft with the right titles. I think this was the one that went to CAPM, and then we changed it after CAPM when I was talking with Stephanie. Yeah, so I neglected to send the updated version to Sheila.
Okay,
But yes.
it's just one of those things that we
Yeah.
have right now where names and titles are all, just make it up. because we
So
probably
noted.
have it more than once.
But we just answered all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we can do that.
So Crystal, I'll send you the updated version with different titles.
Okay.
And then next is expansion of strategic planning standing committee for EMP development. Crystal.
Yes, and I have sent around a copy of the current strategic planning committee membership, who fills those roles. The yellows are those that are vacant, but we have some ideas. And on the back side, I have a list of individuals that I would like to add to the committee. Since we now have our local goals, the next step in this process is for us. And a mission, we have a mission, is to develop the strategies for achieving our goal, and I would like to use the strategic planning committee to do that. But in order to do it effectively, I believe we have to expand the membership. So, on the back side, you'll see a list of people who were not randomly chosen, but who either expressed interest to me through the leadership summit we did in December, or from my trips around campus have stopped me and asked me about being involved in this process, and I've been very grateful for their enthusiasm, including poor Tony over here, who got drafted because he was recommended to me, so. I'm hoping that
That's a
you
good
will,
thing.
you will agree to this list, as well as to giving Lenora and myself permission to add other people as we need them to help us develop the strategies. Because we don't believe this should be limited, but we do believe we need the right heads in the room.
For a couple of the recommended faculty, this might be a surprise to you.
No, I talked to Veronica.
Okay.
Cynthia?
I know with student equity, we've been trying to make sure we create a connection with non-credit to credit to make sure we have that bridge. And I would imagine our next strategic plan will continue with that theme of our goal to do that better. And so I think we need somebody from non-credit.
Well, I
We
see
have
that
a faculty
position
one.
11.
Yeah.
It's not filled, but Lenora's gonna work on that for me. We agree.
Yeah. Oh, good, okay.
I could have sworn that one of our college council meetings in the fall, this committee came and presented and formally actually already added the Director of Student Equity as a standing member.
We may have done that, and I may need to update this with her.
That
But
was
we
all.
haven't done it
So Director of Student Equity.
yet.
Yeah, because I know they put on
I
the added,
believe
but
I
I'm like, wait a
did,
minute,
yeah.
it was already a standing one.
Yeah, I'll get her on.
So I was getting crap for
What
that
about
one.
Elaine Chapman's area?
Extension?
Extension. I mean, I'm just saying, as we think about the future.
Well, we have Raquel, who's an offsite manager appointed, so she
opportunity. Yeah. Let's talk about that. And then what's your proposal, like, once you have this
They will
all situated, they will get a really great invitation from you to say, hey,
Hey, guess what? I
hey.
drafted you.
hey.
No, most of these people I've had conversations with and have been excited to be a part of this, so. It's two pieces, it's developing the educational master plan and also then re-envisioning our integrated planning process to support our educational master plan and student equity.
Terry and Stephanie, for distance education, do you think you'll be the voice for that here, or should we have somebody?
We should have somebody.
Yeah, distance ed.
Maybe our chairs from our committee.
Do you want it to be a faculty member or an administrative member?
We have a committee under student success that is shared governance that has both faculty and management. And then we have a standalone academic senate DE committee.
The standalone academic senate subcommittee, we're having some difficulty staffing that and getting, once Krista leaves, it'll be trickier. So my recommendation would be to pull from the campus-wide. We're probably gonna have an easier go of that.
There is already some numbers listed on the backside that are on that committee. So what we could do is probably look to see who's on that committee. Sorry, I'm totally not on this committee and I'm just talking, but we could look at crossover and see if we have any gaps in specific disciplines that might be tricky in DE. I know, I'm on both sides, so.
So, and has there been discussion about how the work will go forward? You know, will there be sub-work groups for the standing committee, maybe by vision goal?
Yes,
Okay.
that's why I want so
Sounds
many
good.
people so I can get
Yeah.
subgroups to work on the various vision goals.
Okay. Wonderful. Seems logical.
Oh gosh, we hope.
Oh, no problem. Okay, anybody else to add to this?
Yeah, and I'll take recommendations. Lenore and I both are more than, you run into somebody who's got a burning passion to do this with us, we are more than welcome to have them. We are a very welcoming committee.
Okay. BP 7250, Administrator Hiring Policy.
Okay, this one has undergone some significant additions to it, mostly having to do with the definition of educational administrators and their retreat rights into the classroom. And I would talk about this, but seriously, we have a superintendent president who can now really talk to this. That's you.
That's me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You've seen this.
Yeah, I have seen this. We did talk about this. So basically what it does is it sets forth the idea that, sets in place any sort of mechanism whereby somebody who gets hired as an administrator can become a faculty member. And but you have to have criteria. And so if you look at the second bolded paragraph, a tenured employee, when assigned from a faculty position to an educational administrative position or assigned any special or other type of work, is given special classification or designation, shall retain his or her status as a tenured faculty member. And that basically what that means is, just because you become an administrator doesn't mean you have to give up your tenure, which is, not all colleges do that. Some colleges do require faculty to resign from their faculty position, but that's a disincentive for people to consider moving into administration, especially if they're not sure that they're gonna like it, and, you know, if they've given up their tenured position, that doesn't seem fair. But then the more important policy in some ways is the next one, which is that an educational administrator who has not previously acquired tenure may be, very clear, may be considered for a first-year probationary faculty member once the administrative assignment expires or is terminated if the following criteria are met. And that's really important, that it's not automatic. and to ensure that it's not thought to be automatic, we need a policy that stipulates what the criteria are. So the administrator meets the criteria established by the district for the minimum qualifications, meaning they've got to have the MQs. And that the board and the academic senate agree that the administrator possesses the minimum qualifications for employment as a faculty member. And that the person who has been in an administrative assignment is leaving that assignment in good standing. And the purpose of specifically spelling that out is that there have been instances where individuals have been hired as an administrator of some sort. It has not gone well, and some districts have said, oh, no problem, we'll just make you a faculty member. We're not gonna we're not gonna take your job away, we'll just make you a faculty member. If you read this policy, that administrator needs to be in good standing, meaning they didn't have a negative evaluation right before the district decided to do something else with them. And that's really important, because obviously you want somebody who goes into a position who is in good standing in the community. And then the district has a vacancy for which the administrator meets minimum quals. And that's in there because the district is not obligated to create a position for an administrator who decides to end their administrative assignment. And that's, usually a person who says, I'm tired of being an administrator, I'd really like to go back and I'd really like, even though I never taught history here before, I'd like a history position. Well, if there's a history position open, the district may put them into that position, but a person does not have the right to say, go create a history position so that I can have it. So basically, the idea there is, how do we ensure that individuals who are hired to teach, to be administrators, stay in that administrative role, unless for some reason or another they want to move into a different role? All those criteria need to be met. Yes?
So under the adequate identified here, 87458C, it identifies that the administrator completed at least 2 years of satisfactory service, including any time previously served as faculty member. Is that as a tenured faculty member or as an adjunct faculty?
I think the code is silent on it. I
Right,
don't think
okay.
it specifies that they have to have been tenured.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. And I think that's good, because you can have negative evaluations as an adjunct faculty member, so if it's specified full-time.
Or none.
Yeah, or none, yeah. Charlotte?
Are there EEO or equity components of the of this? I'm asking because I'm working on a 9 multiple methods and I can use this to go in there.
I don't think they specified it, and I think it's hard to specify what the components would be, and I think because it's hard to specify it, the assumption is that an institution would have that happening anyway, so the discussion of an administrator doing this would happen within the context of an employment environment that already has that in place.
Okay.
If that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. Definitely.
Crystal, can you scroll really quickly back up to the first bolded portion?
Any concerns, Lenora?
You'll have more time. This
Yeah.
isn't going anywhere. This
This
is
is-
gonna go out now.
Right,
I'm just trying to anticipate
yeah.
the problems that I will hear.
Well,
Good for you.
Some.
So we did talk to the policy committee about this, when we were meeting about a whole bunch of other policies. And the policy committee, I think, asked some really good questions, kind of like, well, why do we need this? The answer from where I sit is, I'd rather have a policy that has a bunch of safeguards in place that says, if may, rather than having no policy. Because it is possible under the ed code for an administrator to say, you know, well, okay, fine, I'm not gonna be an administrator, I wanna be a faculty member. And that is allowable, and you know, it's within ed code, and I think it's even specified in 1725. But it's problematic in districts that don't have the policy, because then if you haven't outlined what that path might look like, some districts are just, no, you can't do it, because it's not required. It's absolutely not required, but
I mean, I know that we do have the retreat rate. I'm more concerned about some of the language when the Senate sees it. So at the end of that first paragraph, shall retain his or her status as a tenured faculty member. I am anticipating them to be like, what does that
all that means
clause
is,
mean?
okay, so we could maybe work on the wording a bit. The only thing it means is that if they take an administrative assignment, they don't have to forfeit their tenure. Because once you forfeit tenure, you forfeited tenure.
I think if it were worded like that, it would be much clearer given the recent Senate debates about what constitutes a faculty member.
Okay.
And they don't want administrators voting on faculty issues.
Oh, yeah,
So
that
I
was
see
never
that
the
particular-
intention,
Yeah,
yeah.
I see that particular phrase as
Okay.
ruffling some feathers.
Okay,
We can reword that.
yeah, we can definitely reword that, because that is absolutely not the intention. You're either, and the ed code is clear about this
Right.
too, you're either an educational administrator functioning in that role, or you're a tenured faculty member functioning in that role.
Ed code is clear about it, the minds
Minds of some people are not full, yes, exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons it's important to articulate these, because we want to be really clear about what roles people have. Yes?
So I think a potential fix there would be shall be reinstated as a tenured faculty member. Rather than retaining, because you don't retain it, you reacquire it.
You reacquire, okay.
That's what I think the thing is. If you're an administrator, you don't continue to have your status as a tenured faculty member.
Right.
If you exercise retreat rights, then you reobtain that tenure status.
Okay.
So
Maybe we can work on some wording on that too.
So shall be able to reattain?
reattain
Shall.
would be.
Shall have-
Be able to reattain.
The the reattain is, I think, the point of it, right? Because,
Or just use the word retreat, be allowed to retreat back into their tenure.
Reattainment sounds like you have to
Yeah.
go through
Shall
some
be.
And it's
Sure, yeah.
important that
So I
we
think
use the word
retreat.
shall,
Yeah.
because shall requires, rather than may, which is permissive.
Well, and that's why I think to say shall be allowed, because it's really up to the person.
Right.
As long as they meet all the other qualifications, and we have retreat rights, then, and the key about the person we're talking about here, we don't have to have a vacant position. They have a right to the position that they retreated from, even if we filled it with someone else. when
Right.
they-
Yes, that's different.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, so it shall be allowed to retreat?
Yes.
Okay, I'll change that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. But again, it's better to have a policy than not.
Oh,
Let's be clear.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. And then last, standing committee appointments of managers. Tito.
Yes, this is me. So it's just simple one. We had in our meeting with Dr. Andrew Jonas, we discussed again, a big part of our responsibility as Management Association is to really appoint managers to college committees, task forces and whatnot. And it just felt in looking at each standing committee actually has a little different wording. If you're looking at them, again, some are very obvious, again, appointed by classified, appointed by academic senate. But when it comes to the manager ones, it's either appointed by Management Association in consultation with superintendent president, that's one of the members. On another one, it's just by Management Association. On another one, it's appointed by the VP of instruction, appointed by, again, so it's very different depending on what committee we're looking at. So one thing that the MA is looking for, being that it is our responsibility to do so, is to just have a consistent language that it's just as management representative, or again, some of them it is an instructional dean, as we're looking in the calendar committee, that one is an instructional dean and a manager appointed by the Management Association. So our desire is to have the wording change on the guidelines for each of the standing committees of the College Council to be consistent and read appointed by the Management Association.
Terry?
So I'm not going to agree, because in some cases, there's a specific dean that I'm going to want to appoint to that committee. And so unless the Management Association is going to basically appoint the specific dean, then I want the language to stay that it's in my power as opposed to the Management Association power.
So it's something that we'd be, again, the good thing is that we work very well together. But again, I'm not gonna be there forever.
Exactly. So-
But I will say that, again, and that's where I was looking at some of these, and they are very specific, and I think I was, for instance, again, this one, it says, division deans appointed by the division deans. I'm like, so it's really appointed by managers, but that's not, again, what we talked about. So with there, it'd be a division dean appointed by the Management Association, but again, it's something that the MA is absolutely open to, especially when it's a particular interest, or even, I think the better one is the strategic planning one, that one has a transfer dean, there's like so many weird ones that they need. And we weren't sure, even the MA, when we had our MA business meeting, they weren't sure who had appointed them or in what role they were. So again, we have a instructional dean that's transfer, CTE, and then just regular instructional dean, and then managed facilities. And so again, the MA ones are pretty obvious, and we'll know, and we have our own tracking sheet with that. But that's where it gets, I think this one's in particular, we're like, well, it's up for, we want more consistency. And I get your concern, Terry, but it's something, again, that while I know I'm not gonna be here forever, it is something that is not absolute, and it's something that should be collegial as far as this, but it is our responsibility to appoint managers to college committees.
Gary?
And so I understand your want for having consistency, but I think it can also be consistent if there are certain managers/administrators that are appointed either by the MA or by the superintendent president or by a VP. And so in the calendar committee one, I would say, you're right, that shouldn't say division deans, that should say the vice president of instruction. I mean, I'm gonna give you an example for that one too, because, you know, is there a specific dean that I want on the calendar committee? And the answer is yes. I want the natural science dean there, because the impact of the calendar on natural sciences is far different than the impact, say, for the dean of BET or the dean of social sciences. And so there are reasons sometimes why it needs to be a specific dean appointed by someone. But, you know, my concern was, yes, you and I worked well together. You and I won't be here forever, and we don't know how things will work at that point. So, you know, my preference would be, yes, let's have consistency, but let's have some administrators appointed by the president and some administrators appointed by the appropriate vice president.
Yeah, and I would say, Tito, yeah, I understand this need for consistency, but we also don't want to create an extra layer of bureaucracy and to have a VP have to talk to you and then get, you know, approval. It just adds another layer. Where I served on the Dean's Council, we discussed which dean would be on the calendar committee, et cetera. And so just let's let it flow easily from the point of operation to the point of just getting it done. So I would favor that process of VP and, yeah, just because that's how we get the work done.
And I have to go, sorry, but I have to go run a calendar committee.
Okay. Did you bring the right dean?
I'm going.
Okay. Lenora?
In the instance where they need a particular dean, such as the instructional dean from natural sciences, why can't our roster specify that particular, I mean, other colleges do have this. If they want a specific dean from a specific area, they put it into the roster.
Exactly, and a perfect example is a student success committee.
Having been on the Dean's Council, sometimes the Dean of Nat Sci didn't want to do it.
Well, they don't
And
get a
then the
choice.
Dean of VP, the Dean of Performing and Communication Arts then would rotate in. because the calendar also impacts them similar to the natural science faculty.
Funny, 'cause that's who was the last dean on the country.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to suggest is that Tito, Terry, Cynthia, and I have a meeting
Yeah.
and talk about and go through the list, because when we talked about it, I understood one of your concerns,
Right.
primary concerns being those positions where
It was-
you had to consult with me
Right.
in order to do it. And there were a few instances there where I thought, well, I don't need you to consult with me because you can make that selection.
Right.
So I think, but I think that there are some other things, but why don't we just have a conversation and see if we can figure out what language would work
Yeah, because again,
for
this is,
everybody.
exactly, we brought this up again, it was brought up at our
Yeah.
business meeting of the manager, so I definitely want to make sure of that.
Yeah, let's have a
There's-
meeting and figure out what the best language is,
That'd be good. for
because
me.
that's what we want to do, is
And
have the
it
best.
may be different for each standing committee.
Yeah,
And that's why
we need
it's-
to talk.
And again, and that's why I was giving the example, as Lenore mentioned, if you look at the student success committee, even though it's very specific, again, it has the dean of
Yeah.
English, dean of this, dean of that, so.
Yeah,
I like it, there you go.
okay, we can chat.
Super.
All right, awesome. Anything else for the good of the order with 1 minute left? Announcements?
Yes, go buy your Dodger tickets.
I already
Today's
bought
the last
mine.
day, yes.
I
you
bought
will.
mine and donated them.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Oh, Lenora.
A faculty member has just published a book on bees.
Oh.
Charlene Potter, ESL. It's
Awesome.
a children's book, but it's available on Amazon if you want to purchase a book on the importance of our pollinator friends.
Awesome. Yes.
PCC students have been selected to participate in Signing Day with Michelle Obama at UCLA on May 1st.
Wow.
So we're sending a lot of students from our empowerment programs
That's so
to
great.
go and attend and really celebrate their successes.
Do you need chaperones?
Yeah, right. We have limited, we are securing one. We have chaperones. I believe I claimed it first when I made the announcement. She's like, I will be there.
Yes.
So bad.
All right, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that's exciting. How many students are going?
I've been
damn it.
wanting to do so the email.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh my God, that is so
It's funny, yeah.
That's fine, go ahead.
Go. I know, we always see.
Yeah, there's a meeting that's in
No, there were people added to the list, we had new people apply.
the students who want to use.
After an hour and 15 minutes of us discussing these same exact questions,
I'm like,
thankfully Crystal texted me, she's like, okay, you need to be here now. Yeah, I'm leaving. It's different people.
did you stop recording, Lucky?